Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great program and podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We certainly appreciate you guys being a great audience. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell notification button so you get all the notifications and updates of what we're doing on the show. Go to iTunes. Go to Google Play, subscribe over there to the podcast. Tell your friends, neighbors, dogs, relatives, your mistresses, your wives, cockroaches, everybody you know, tell them to subscribe to the Chris Voss Show and listen to great guests like we have on today. We're also on the Tune In Now app for podcasts and also patreon.com/Chris Voss. Go to there. So my guest today is been on the show I think at least once or maybe twice. We may have to get him those SNL robes for multiple appearances. His name is Brian Thompson of amzn.to. He's the creator of Zen Thinking and author of the upcoming book, Sparks to Awaken. He's a writer, speaker, teacher of non-duality. We'll find out what that is, who shares original essays, poems, podcasts, and videos of spiritual self-realization. He's helped me through a lot of dark moments through his beautiful memes he makes and everything else. And he's a great guy all around. And he's Canadian, but we won't hold that against him. Welcome to the show, Brian. How you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. Doing good.
It's great to have you. It's great to have a Canadian on, eh?
This is my third visit.
Third visit, congratulations. I think after 5, we're going to give out SNL robes or something, you know, the SNL hosts do. So those of you, the audience that need to get familiar with your brand and what zenthinking.net does, tell us about who you are and what you're doing and what you're up to.
Well, first of all, it's not a brand.
Okay.
It's really Zen Thinking is just the home where I'm publishing my stuff. And I don't, at first when I started it, we can go down this path a bit, but when I started, I thought it was going to be a brand. And then the more that I realized through the work that I'm doing, I don't want to turn my work into a brand. To me, that is the opposite of actually what I'm trying to do. I don't want to monetize. I mean, I will have a book to sell, but I don't want to. I just want to share things that I'm realizing. And
well, I kind of get that. It's not very Zenish to be, you know,
to monetize it. Yeah, I mean, last year I put some T-shirts up there, and I know, just, I was like playing around with some cool designs, and then it felt dirty, so I took them all down. And I don't want to pimp out the truth that I feel that I'm communicating by putting a label on the back of a T-shirt and selling it out like that.
You know, I think you have a really good point there. It would be kind of disingenuous if Jesus or Buddha, was like, everyone love each other, buy the shirt.
Exactly.
It just be kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah. So anyway, so Zen Thinking is, it's my website, and it's where I publish all my work, and it's also a really active Facebook page where I share all the stuff that I'm doing. And and then, like you said, it's all works pointing to realizing the nature of one's self, and that's really what everything I do is revolving around now, is to help people uncover all of the muck that is filling their minds and confusing them, because everyone's running around and not really knowing why they're running around, thinking that they have to do things that society are telling them to do, thinking that they have to abide by the I don't know, just all of the nonsense that we accept in life. That we then project, that we accept all the nonsense, and then we project it back onto the world that we're perceiving, and then we're stuck in this relentless wheel of confusion, and we go to our grave spinning and wondering what the hell is all of this about. And so I've been trying to demystify some of that and really wake up to helping people wake up to who they truly are and what all of this is and what it isn't.
Now, so people can look you up while we're, and because they tend to do this while we're talking, give us your Twitter. We've got zenthinking.net. Where else do they need to look you up to see?
Twitter's Zen Thinking. I mean, I haven't been on there in months, probably.
Okay.
Instagram, Zen Thinking. YouTube, Zen Thinking. Zen Thinking.
I know I see a lot of your stuff on Facebook.
Yeah. And even on Facebook, I've been, the past little while, I've taken a bit of a reprieve in the last 3 months just to kind of focus on some other stuff. But now that it's winter time again, I'll be pumping up all of the writing that I do again.
Well, both, I mean, you do some incredible photography, and then you guys have been doing, you and your, I'm not sure if you're married yet or engaged yet, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but.
My partner.
Your partner. You and your partner, she's a wonderful person. She takes incredible photographs. I mean, I just finally went, I don't have a talent for this. These people do. A lot of great inspirational photography. And then you guys have been doing a lot of great video, wedding video photography. That's just magical. It's almost like someone from an MTV video came, only without sort of the weird MTV part. That was kind of probably not a good analogy. Hindsight, but let's see the beautiful MTV videos you've seen. They're very elegant. I mean, you guys just make these really, they almost seem like high quality production videos. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, and it's really funny how all that happened too, because my partner, Jennifer, she runs a wedding photography business and has for many, many years. And about 1 year ago, when I was still trying to make Zen Thinking a brand, and this is kind of a funny story here of how all of this unfolded to be, because I didn't consider myself a filmmaker. I consider myself a hobbyist photographer who, knew what he was doing, but I never earned a penny doing it. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I started to become, I had this bitter taste in my mouth about what was I trying to do with Zen Thinking. And it became obvious to me that I was trying to, at first I created Zen Thinking as an expression of my own inner journey. And then once the more I kind of started to awaken to and have these realizations, I thought, oh, well, let's turn it into a web business. And then as soon as I started going down that intention, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't. It was tainting what I was sharing because of money and this pressure that I was putting on creating. And then it became, to myself, it became more like a job rather than an expression, which is what I wanted it to be. And I realized, one of the main realizations I've come across is that you can't, life will present everything to you. And you can't force anything to happen. And I was trying to force Zen Thinking into being something that it really didn't want to be. And then all of a sudden it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, well, I'm going with Jennifer to all these weddings anyway. Why don't I just start turning the camera on and start documenting them? And next thing you know, we're doing wedding films and they're getting a great response.
Yeah, they're really beautiful.
So that helped take some of the pressure off of what I was doing with Zen Thinking, and I could bring it back to its more pure place as just a platform for me to express and to share without pressure of trying to earn a living off of it, which was really
his videos are really amazing. I mean, I'm not really a big wedding dude. I don't get invited to weddings much. Strippers don't get married much. Sorry, I'm really enjoying that joke. But sometimes it's just that right joke. So anyway, I'm going to revel in that. But no, I mean, I watch you guys' videos and I'm like, holy crap, I should ask one of these strippers to marry me. But you guys do these beautiful things. I mean, you just must blow the minds of these people that hire you guys, because it really is. It's very Zen, in fact, too. I think you take a lot of the emotional feel and aspect of the richness of that experience and put it onto film.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to deliver a real, authentic, genuine candid documentary approach to covering a person's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think
we don't do any, everything is really natural. There's no posed or scripted stuff. Anyways, that's not really why I'm here. I'm not here to talk about wedding videos.
Oh, okay. I figured I'd talk about everything about you, but it's whatever you want to cover.
Hey, am I frozen? On my picture, I'm frozen.
Your picture is coming in and out. Like I'll see you and then it'll go blank, and then I'll see you and it'll go blank. But we should be fine because it'll be audio on iTunes.
Right.
And even then, most people on YouTube will tell me that they never watch my YouTube videos because, I mean, who wants to look at this mug? They like listen to it as they do chores around the house. I'm like, well, thank you.
There you go.
Guess I should at least people listen to me. I don't know that I want to sit and stare at me for 10 minutes either. So there's that. I mean, I've lived with myself for 50 years. I've had enough of that. So let's talk about more about what you want to talk about. Is it more about the Zen and getting to know yourself better and what's going on in the world with that?
Well, I mean, for people that aren't really that are new to the topic of non-duality and Zen, this is going to sound really bizarre, but what I dive into is understanding your true self, because ultimately that is in life our biggest struggle. Everyone, even if they say, "Oh, I love myself," it's like, okay, well, who is that self that you love? I'm dead serious.
I know you're serious.
Who is this self that you love? Or conversely, who is the self that you hate? Who is the self that you're angry with? Who is the self that you're frustrated with? And who is the so-called other that you might be in a relationship with, that you have a problem with? And these are all the things that define our experience of life, is our relationships. What is relationship? What is the relationship with myself? What is relationship with another? What is my relationship with the world? And who is it that is having that relationship with the world? So these are the things that I dove into, and I started exploring Buddhism. I started exploring Zen, and it brought me to this Eastern Indian philosophy of non-duality called Advaita Vedanta, which points to the same thing as Zen, but through the lens of a different culture. And it's really recognizing that there is no permanent self. Yes, there's a body and there's a mind, but what we refer to as myself is not something that is unchanging. Actually, our true self is unchanging, but what we think is myself is thoughts and feelings and emotions, which are constantly changing. And we then identify with whatever thought happens to be within our mind, and we believe that that is us. And then there are emotions which come out of that connection between a thought and identifying with that thought. And that is the very source of our emotional suffering, is because we're believing these things that are arising within our mind, and we believe that they define us. Either our situation, our circumstance, our life, our emotional well-being. And through the study of Zen and the study of self, which happens through meditation and a practice called self-inquiry, you stop. You just stop and you turn within, metaphorically speaking, and you just listen. You observe, and you realize that you're not the thoughts. You're not the emotions. You're not what you are sensing at all, because you are the one who is aware of these things. They are objects to you. A thought is an object. It's a thought object. And you don't create that thought object. You don't have a choice what thoughts appear within your mind. A thought is there. And there's 10,000 of them or more every day. Thoughts pop up. You're not creating any of them. Thoughts happen. Just like the old Zen saying, just like clouds passing through the blue sky, The clouds can be stormy. The clouds can be cover and obscure the sky completely, but the sky is still there. The sky remains unchanged. And that's like our consciousness. That's like our awareness, which is the true self. So when you go back and recede into yourself and you realize that you're actually the watcher of all that seems to be happening within, but you're none of them. What this does is it breaks that bond of identity. So if a thought arises, you're no longer, you're not identifying with it, which means you're not taking things personally. And, it's also exploring into what is the nature of thought. So yes, thoughts arise, but they're not mine. They're not mine unless I claim ownership of them. Well, that is a concept. That's not truth. A concept isn't truth. And when we start looking at things from this witnessing perspective, which is all that one truly ever has in life, is we're always just witnessing whatever seems to be happening. And everything, all of our life is just stuff happening that we are ultimately completely out of control. Things are happening. Even when we think we're in control, that's just a thought. And that thought we are the witness of. When, even science can back this up, saying, recently there's been studies saying that, I can't remember the exact number, but the mind, they've shoved electrodes into the brain and they've watched the impulses that are happening and all. I don't know science, but it's all that stuff. And they're saying that, the mind actually knows what it's going to do before you are conscious of it. So the mind says, we're going left. And then a quarter of a second later, you say, I'm going to go left. But that comes after the brain has already said, I'm going left. So we have this false impression that we are in control of our life, but we're not. We never have been and we never will. We are simply the witness to life that seems to be happening to us.
Yeah.
So when all of these thoughts are happening, you don't need to attach yourself to them. And when you realize that they have no effect on me, if I don't attach my sense of self onto them, they disappear. So when you start letting go of things, you realize that there actually are no problems in life, because problems are entirely conceptual and they're entirely created by the mind that is perceiving a situation and judging it through the lens of whatever cultural conditioning they've been through. So everything starts to break down when you start abiding from this witnessing perspective, which is your true self and not an imagined entity.
Sorry, that's my delivery guy at the ring door. Sorry about that.
So that's kind of the I guess an introduction into.
So let's cover that here. So yeah, is what my perception of understanding what you're saying. There's a couple different things you're saying in there, but starting at this point, we kind of come into this world as a being of self, and we don't really have a whole lot of prejudice or a lot of interpretations of who we are. And what we start doing at that point is building, well, this is who I am. And we grab, maybe religion, or we grab this, that, or the other. And we start building this kind of a false psyche of this is who I am. And we present that to the world. And it tends to be kind of an interpretive rose-colored filter of how we see the world and what comes at us.
Absolutely. And that is not only your imagined self, but that's also what you believe the world to be.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you identify as being this political persuasion or this political persuasion or this religion or this religion or this nationality or that nationality or a jock or a scientist, whatever, these are all little jackets, these little coats of identity that you put on that you then are limiting your true self by, because your true self is limitless. But ever since, I mean, our entire life, we've been told this is who you are, and this is how you're supposed to live according to these rules.
You know, Brian, you're right. I've been living these rules. I have to wear clothes. I'm going to be a nudist. It's what's inside me. No, I'm just kidding.
Do it, man.
I'll do it after the show. We're off camera.
But it's recognizing these, recognizing
my Pearl Agent YouTube. Kids were watching. Damn it!
But honestly, when you start to realize that everything in life is a concept, and no concept is true. It's a concept. So what is true? What is true? If everything is a concept, then what is true? That which is perceiving the world is true. But perceiving, I should probably manage that word a bit, because perceptions happen, but perceptions are implying mind is translating. So awareness is the truth. So awareness without the interpretation of mind is the absolute truth, and that is your true self. So if we can recede from this habit, this lifelong habit of attaching ourselves to thoughts, attaching ourselves to beliefs, attaching ourselves to concepts, and all of these imaginings, we can actually see the world for what it truly is, which is a reflection of your true self. So if I'm in a negative state of mind, then the world I perceive is negative. So
you focus on what you
on what you are believing about yourself, others, or the world, person, place, or thing. It's all, whatever you see is yourself. You will never see anything but yourself. You think that you're seeing somebody else, but you're seeing them through, like you said, the rose-colored glasses or the shit-colored glasses, whatever you're wearing, whatever your modality of mindset might be. But if you can step away from judgments and beliefs and labels and opinions, and this is what non-duality is. It's stripping away all opinions, stripping away all beliefs, and coming to this place of zero where everything is okay, because it's only the mind that says things aren't okay, but the mind doesn't even exist. Because when we stand back as the witness, we see that the mind is just a series of happenings that appear to us. And if we don't identify with the mind, then the mind drops away, and what's left is silence.
So maybe a good analogy would be that we build our own matrices around ourselves based upon what we choose to believe and everything else. And we literally do build a matrix of, well, yeah, I'm suggesting that in theory. And we kind of build our own matrix, if you will.
Absolutely. We are the creator of our entire universe, each of us, without a doubt. And
within the matrix.
But while I say that, at the same time, that is a choiceless event that is happening. So until we don't have a choice in what's happening to us. The only choice that one truly has in life is whether or not we will react or respond to a thought that arises within mind. That is the only free will. That's the only free will we have, is will I respond to this thought or not? Because when you go to take a drink of water, you're not actually doing that. The body is just doing it on its own. And when you're walking, are you actually having to, like, are you beating your heart? Are you moving your feet? It's like walking happens, drinking happens, pooping happens, eating happens, digesting, breathing. Like all of this, you're not doing. You're the witness to all of it. And
Brian, I just went back to myself and I decided I'm not a podcaster. See ya.
There we go. See, I'll just have an interview with myself.
It's back to zero. No, I probably should have studied this concept more over life, and it's a great concept. One of the things that I've had
It's
to
the
deal
end
with.
of concepts. It's not a concept.
The end of concepts. It's the concept to end all concept, I guess, or the beginning of whatever. But one of the things I've always challenged myself with, or been challenged with, is why people believe what they believe. And I've never gone too deep in the study of what you've gone into, where you start with the basics of self when you're born into this world, and then you start building who you are. And one of the things I've really gotten into is why people believe what they believe. Why it is someone decide one day that Martians are walking amongst us, or lizard people are walking amongst us. There's blue Martians, visiting on a frequent basis. Stuff that's sometimes so freakishly outlandish, but somehow they find a way to believe it, and how they build those systems. And I know Anthony Robbins talked about the reticular activating system, and basically this mind's ability that I guess is designed in a way to keep you from going insane. Where once you begin believing something, or taking it upon yourself, you probably know the right word for that, is then your mind starts collecting and piling all the beliefs to substantiate that belief on top of itself. Like you see it manifest itself. Like if I buy myself a red Honda Civic, after that I start driving down the road, my brain starts seeing all the red Honda Civics on the road that I never saw before. And it's your brain going, see, you're smart because other people are smart, so you made a good choice. And that sort of thing.
Yes. Ultimately, everything that we perceive is learned, and all of the choices that we think we're making, we're not making. That's going right back to really understanding that free will is absolutely false. The hat that you're wearing, the shirt that you're wearing, did you really?
My shirt.
Nothing. Did you really have a choice in buying those or putting them on?
It's a freaking conspiracy.
So let's say I went to the store and I picked it up. Okay, well, or if it was given to you, whatever it is. But the situation is if you went to the store and bought that shirt, well, is it really free will if there's only two shirts there?
Well,
and you were
fat and black, it looks good on you. That's not really free will, but I did choose to be fat, so maybe that is free will.
What I'm saying is that everything in life was taught to us.
Yeah.
And the decisions that we seem to be making are based off of the conditioning that we had no choice in.
I think, and people can relate to this if they've ever been through a cathartic teardown of your personality or your ego.
Okay, but there is no personality, there is no ego. This is all conceptual. That's what I'm saying.
When it gets torn down through a cathartic event, and
if we can start to question our beliefs, we will end up realizing that the things that are making us suffer in life are absolutely false. So start questioning your beliefs from even, did I have a choice in what I put on this morning? And you realize that everything is conditioned. I mean, when we were first children, you looked in your mirror and your mom or dad pointed and said, "That's you. That's you." Yeah. That was the start of your conditioning, because that isn't you. Where's that little boy today? That little boy doesn't exist. So that is a concept that is the beginning concept that shaped our entire identifying objects as ourself, when really we are the witness to objects. We are not the objects that we perceive. Everything around us is constantly changing, and we are the watcher of it. And if we react to every little object that is coming at us, we're just going to be running around like madmen, which is why the world appears to be in the condition that it is, because everybody is reacting to nonsense. Everybody is reacting to nonsense, and none of it is true. So if you step back and stop viewing the world through opinions and just abide in your own natural quietness, your own inner silence,
The dude abides.
you'll realize that I don't have a problem with anybody in this moment. And this moment, right here and now, is the only moment there is. We could say, okay, what about next week? Well, in this moment, next week is a concept. Right
Can
now.
I move in with you? And every time I see a Trump thing, you can like start talking to me and calm me down and be like,
okay, Chris, right now, where is Trump? Where's Trump right now in this moment?
golfing.
We can joke about it,
I know.
but I'm being very serious here.
Okay.
In this moment, there's me and you, and there's this. And if we can treat life as just this, just what is in front of us, instead of like worrying about what someone did last week, or imagining what somebody is doing on the other side of the world, or fearing a potential outcome of what might happen next week or next month, that's bullshit. That is all conceptual, and that is not life. That is imagined illusion. This is life, this moment. And whatever you do in this moment is your life. And this is what all of life is, this continual unfolding of now. So in this moment, if you are trying to continually escape this moment by talking about the past or talking about the future, then you miss what truly is. And if you are continually doing that, then you'll never really experience life. You'll only experience your fear and your projected desires and your opinions of life rather than the actuality of life. And the actuality of life isn't positive or negative. It's just silence. And there's real beauty in that.
So the other thing I've studied is not, I haven't studied as much as you have, clearly. But the other thing I've studied is why people have subscribed to different thoughts that make, based upon their insecurities about how they can't control life. Like a lot of people subscribe to religion because the world is such a horror show to them, and it's so out of control that it's the log that they have to grab onto to try and fantasize some sort of stability, which there never is. But they think that that's going to give them some sort of thing. Or for people that I know in religion, they're like horribly overwhelmed by the fact that their life may not really have any meaning, and there may not be anything after death. I don't know if some of that is an aspect of what you're talking about.
So absolutely. I mean, your initial question was, why do people subscribe to the beliefs they do? Mm-hmm. And that is because of conditioning. Everything is conditioned not to you, to the body and mind that appear to be you. You are not your body and your mind. They are objects of appearing within your awareness. And again,
witnessing them. Sorry to interrupt you.
What was that?
So I'm witnessing them. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, your body and your mind are objects appearing within the awareness that you are.
I'm going to tell this to my parole agent. It wasn't me that did the crime. I was just witnessing it.
In truth, it's true. So when a person, you said, why do they subscribe to the beliefs they subscribe to? Well, they had no choice. You have no choice when you were born, who you were born to, what religion you were born into, what IQ or intelligence the body and brain that you've been encumbered with might or might not have, what physical deformities, what who your teachers were, what the culture was around you. Like all of this, you have no choice in. You never have any choice, because here you are and life is happening. And whatever is happening right now will shape the future so-called decisions that you also have no choice in making, because everything is interdependent. This is a Buddhist term. Everything is co-arising, interdependent. So one thing relies on another continually. So we can't say that, oh, this person believes that because they're dumb. Well, okay, maybe in the relative sense you could say they're dumb, but they didn't have a choice in being dumb. They didn't have a choice in being raised.
Wouldn't they still be dumb?
Who they appear to be is, but the awareness isn't dumb. Awareness is perfect. It's empty of opinion. It's empty of intelligence. It's infinite. It is just a blissful emptiness of nothing. That is what everyone really is. We are born, as we awaken to this world, we are empty of everything. We're empty. We're blissfully empty, and that's a beautiful thing. But we are encumbered with all of these ideas. You are this, you are that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And all of this accumulates to, you graduate from high school, and then all of a sudden you have this head full of thoughts that you believe is the way of the world. And that shapes how you seem to be walking through life in any given moment. But all of that is learned, and it's all conceptual. None of it is true. So hearing things like this can kind of throw a stick in the spokes of your bike, and it can kind of stop that a bit. And you can say, well, wait a minute. So I don't have to listen to my mind? It's like, no. You don't have to listen to your mind.
So those kill voices in my head, I shouldn't listen to them.
Nonsense.
That's one of my other personages. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think he's more aware than I am. So what's the place do we do? Do we have to tear down the whole matrix that we built, or do we have to redesign our matrix? How do we get? Do we need to go back to zero, or
it's ultimately, it's up to however this type of teaching resonates with people. If it doesn't resonate with you, then you're going to carry on with your life as it has been. Mm-hmm. Most people get to a breaking point in life, call it a rock bottom or some traumatic experience, where it forces you to question life. Mm-hmm. If you're just a casual listener and whatever life seems to be going fine, then this won't resonate. But if there's some dissatisfaction with life, if there is some suffering, and everyone suffers, what is suffering? What is depression? What is addiction? What are all these? What are all of these? What is this madness that we all seem to be bearing against the so-called world? And ultimately, if these questions are starting to resonate with you, then what you need to do is to just stop, slow down inside, and start just noticing. Just start noticing your inner so-called environment, and realize that I don't have to react to that thought. It starts from there, not reacting. And then once you start when you stop not reacting, that madness stops coming at you, because someone has to stop, because you are perpetuating it through your projecting of your own inner madness onto the world that you're perceiving. And when you stop projecting, then the illusion starts to dissolve. It's not what you think it is. So self-inquiry is a practice, and it revolves around the question, who am I? And this question can be a mantra that when you start saying, I'm a piece of garbage. Well, who is the I that thinks I am a piece of garbage? Is there really two of me here? Because that's what that question implies.
Is that what the non-duality is about?
It's realizing that everything is yourself. There is no limited I that you believe yourself to be. You, yourself, is inclusive of everything, because wherever I go, here I am. And this I that I think I am actually includes everything within my field of present perception.
So to quote from The Matrix, does the steak not taste as good as I think it does? But it really doesn't, but it does? Or Yeah.
I don't remember that quote, but
there's a part in the movie where the guy betrays Neo and what's his name, the big Lawrence Fishburne, the great actor, and he betrays them, and he goes back to the Matrix, and because he likes eating the steak and the taste of the steak, and he knows that it's bullshit and it's fake and it's a program, but he loves the taste of it.
Well, and that's exactly why most people will listen to this, and then they'll go on with their life, and they'll go right back to suffering. And that's why, you know, people go to yoga. They go to their weekly church, or they go to their weekly Buddhist temple, and they sit in meditation for 10 minutes a day, or they go and meditate for whatever. They go to yoga class, and they escape what they believe is the world. And then they go back, you know, chances are they walk out of yoga, and then they go out for a beer with their friend, and then they're back into the madness. And that, realizing that there is no escape from yourself.
I know that one.
All that you can escape your ideas of yourself, but your true self you can't escape. And if you get to know your true self, you realize that there's no one that needs to escape. There's no one that needs to go anywhere, because
the skinny guy needs to escape out of a fat guy, but that's another story.
Both are illusions.
I'm not really fat, damn it. I can get Victoria's Secret models. I know I can. I'm just having fun. So where do I need to be? Do I need to tear down the whole Matrix, Brian? And I just need to walk around going, I have this grin on my face, and it's like none of this shit fucking matters.
No, here's the thing. Here's the thing is that all of it matters, but it's not what it appears to be.
Okay.
All of it matters, meaning this moment, not anything outside of this moment. If you start worrying about Trump again, then you're living in illusion. That is not in your here and now. Live in the moment.
I went through a thing with me and my dogs. And I imagine a lot of parents and people with family and stuff go through this, but you get caught up in the whole mechanism of it, the whole, you know, industrial production of it, and keeping all the wheels going. And at one point, so a couple of years ago, I realized, you know, my dogs are getting older, and they're my children, and I was missing being in the now, being in the moment with them. You know, they come up to me and be like, "Oh, hey, Dad, play with us." And I'd be like, "Hey, hang on, Dad's got to try and make some money to pay for you and treats and stuff." And then, you know, they go off, and I'd feel guilty. And I'm like, "Hey, I should go play with my dogs, but I got to make money so I can take care of the dogs." And, you know, you get caught up in this thing. And so I started to really struggle with being in the moment. And even when I was playing with my dogs, you know, we go do things. I'd be on my phone, or sometimes I just really wouldn't even be really connecting with them. And I started really tuning into, I really need to just look them in the eyes. We need to make a connection. And this moment needs to become pure, where it's just me and them, and we're spending time together, and it's quality time. And I'm appreciating, like, the real struggle, and you probably understand what I'm trying to say, but the real struggle was me just really trying to value and be in that moment, and not be anywhere else, not be distracted, and to make that a really quality moment. And I had a really hard time with that because for years I'd just been kind of blasting through everything, and it's almost kind of like you're on a ride with people, but you look at them every now and then, but you're really, you know, more about the ride. And then one day they're gone, and you're just like, who was that? Fuck, I missed that. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's defines most people's lives, is that they, you know, there's I can't remember who was saying this. I remember listening to one teacher who was saying that describes most people's lives. It gets to the point where you're having dinner and you're already thinking about what's dessert going to be. And then you have dessert, and it's like, oh, what drink should I get after dessert? And then you're having your drink after dessert, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow morning? You're never living in the moment. You're always 10 steps ahead or 10 weeks ahead or whatever. And if you're not living in that imaginary future, then you're dreading or fearing or living in a memory of the past, and you're missing out in the only thing that counts, which is this moment. So how do you bring yourself back to now? Well, that's what they call spiritual practice. And there's many different practices, but that's why I use self-inquiry to, who am I? And realizing that I am this moment. I cannot escape this moment. I cannot escape myself. I need to slow down and stop living my life through my plans, through my goals, through my desires, through my worries about bill payments, through my schedule and my to-do lists, and realize, there comes a point where you have to start maybe deconstructing some stuff and letting go of some attachments that you've been hanging on to. And that's what brought me to where I am today.
Yeah.
In not wanting to have a brand for Zen thinking, because that was one of the things that was taking me out of the moment that I was so desperately trying to realize. So I'm not interested in doing that. And there's many things I'm no longer interested in doing. And that is so that I can fully be present as much as I am able to. So I quit chasing the illusions of the world that were promising me pleasure, that were promising me happiness, that were promising me success or satisfaction. You joke about hookers and money and technology, and whether you're joking or serious, that is the image of the world, is that these things bring you happiness. Well, they bring limited pleasure, but they do not deliver happiness. And that's where I got in my life 6 years ago. So I got to a very low place where I realized I've done a lot of wild stuff. I've had some amazing successes, many goals and desires achieved, and I hated myself and my life. And you look at many successful people who reach the peak performance of what life can offer, and they're miserable.
Yeah.
So what that's telling us is that I've learned myself very directly, is that no object of attainment will deliver on its promise of happiness. So what that means is that what does deliver happiness is actually nothing. Happiness is the realization of that which is always present, which is the cessation of desire. Happiness appears momentarily when a desire is fulfilled. So when a desire is fulfilled, that means there is no longer a desire. So true happiness is the end of desire. Pleasure is momentary and it's fleeting. And if you want to live your life from one pleasure to the next, then you're going to be swinging like Tarzan through the jungle. And that's grasping at the next job, grasping at the next gig, grasping at the next sensory pleasure, whether it be food or alcohol or drugs or women or fast cars or going to whatever.
You described my last 50 years.
Me too. And that's why at the age of 40, I said, slow down, stop. I have to start questioning, what are these desires doing for me? They're making me insane. So you stop. I didn't intend to stop desiring, but desires stopped. I don't desire anything anymore. And that is it's a very peaceful place to be, where I don't need anything. I don't need to chase pleasure. And
well, I mean, so how do you build up from this? I mean, if you're going back to your basic self and nothing matters, how do you choose what matters? And even then, when you choose those things, you're going back into the same matrix that will get rebuilt of, well, I'll give you an example. Like, say I go back to zero. I just go back to, okay, nothing matters, and I'm just back to base one.
No, I got to interject because I didn't say nothing matters.
Okay.
I said everything matters.
Okay.
But nothing is as it appears.
Okay.
Very important distinction.
So
to say that nothing matters is basically nihilism.
Okay, so I misunderstood you then.
And to say that is brushing off this moment itself, saying this doesn't matter. But of course it matters because that's what is.
That would kind of explain my experience with huskies, because I love huskies, but then my bed is filled with fur and so is my car. So there's like it's not really that happy. Just thinking.
That one went over my head.
That and the shedding. So there's that. And I was kind of like, I thought they would make me happy, but there's all this shedding.
Well, you know, and that's, you know, that's a big realization, is to realize that no thing in itself will bring you happiness.
So what will bring us happiness, Brian?
The end of desire.
The end of desire brings us happiness because you
are the source of happiness.
I'm the source of happiness.
Okay, so here,
can I sell this?
We imagine that we can find happiness through attaining something.
Brian, I'm going to use my pickup line from here on out. Hey, babe, I'm the source of happiness. Brian?
Yeah.
You there?
I'm here.
I'm just doing comedy for you, but
yeah, I don't know. What do you want me to say?
You don't have to say anything. You can keep going with what you're doing.
Anyway,
so I am the source of happiness.
What I'm saying, and you know, again, you can brush this off if you want.
I'm not brushing it off.
If you can find happiness in an object, let me know. Because I'll tell you, as soon as you get an object that appears to bring you lots of happiness, that happiness will wear off.
Yeah.
So look at your closet in your garage full of electronics that has totally, you know, the latest technology. All of a sudden you're like, this is so freaking cool. I've done it 1,000 times myself. And you get so excited and you're happy and you walk around with this new device in your pocket or on your desk, or camera gear or a lens or a car or a brand new mansion. And then eventually that thing, the happiness that you attribute to that thing, wears off. And you realize that thing didn't have happiness.
Yeah.
It was me that imbued that thing with happiness. Through the lens of my cultural glasses, through the conditioning that I have so been nurtured with, saying that this is what happiness is. But that isn't happiness. That is limited pleasure. And limited pleasure is not happiness. And if you chase limited pleasure, then you will forever be suffering the dissolution of that pleasure. So it's like up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's why people are they're getting rocked by life, because it is a series of continual ups and downs. That's how it appears to be. But when you realize that I am the source of happiness, I'm the one that gives happiness to objects.
Okay. Okay, so that was my question that I was going to have for you. I think you just gave it to me. So, because I've been through this in life where I thought, well, if I get that second BMW, I'll be happy. If I get this, I'll be happy. And then I kind of went through that catharsis of Fight Club, where the things you own end up owning you, and then you're still not happy.
Absolutely.
So the place that I want to be is that I'm the source of happiness, but the happiness is within me. I shouldn't look outward for, is this going to make me happy, or is that going to make me happy? I should just be, I make myself happy, and so I should just be happy in a state of being, I guess.
Exactly. And even happiness is an overused word that I try not to use it often, because it implies, most people, it's been tainted. Most people believe that happiness is a state, but it's actually your natural self is this presence of okayness with everything. And it's only
peacefulness, maybe.
Peacefulness. And peacefulness is really ultimately happiness. But it's realizing that the only thing keeping you from realizing peace or happiness or joy is your opinions, and you're chasing after all of these things that are bringing you ultimately nothing but pain. Because this is where duality comes in, is happiness is not happy. Everything in duality is paired with its apparent opposite. You can't have one without the other. So happiness is the same as pain. So because when the happiness wears off, you're left with pain.
Yeah.
If you eat too much, it starts off great, and then it ends in pain. And this
you're
is
looking at it right now.
This is how everything goes. Is too much of a so-called good thing becomes bad, and that's duality. That's how everything is in life. Even if you achieve the greatest goal or success or whatever, ultimately it wears off, and then you go sliding right back down that other side of the mountain of duality. So then you're right.
So you've introduced me to something that I want to start thinking about, because I went through my catharsis of all these things don't make you happy, and you just need to try and rebuild yourself and try and be happy without all these other things. But I never really embraced the concept of your opinions or your beliefs that you think might make you happy don't make you happy, because you're always going to be living in a world. You tell me if I'm reflecting this correctly, but I'm always going to be living in a world where there's going to be the opposite of my beliefs that are going to cause me pain, that falsely make me feel happy, because I feel that, well, these are my beliefs and you're wrong, and I'm unhappy that you're different than my beliefs.
Exactly. The more beliefs
this fucking head game.
Exactly. And that's what it all is the more beliefs you have.
I do that a lot.
Dude, check this out. The more beliefs and opinions you have, the more miserable you will be. Because
that would explain my life right now.
Well, that's what I realized 6 years ago. Is I thought I thought I was the only sane person in the world. I thought everyone was an idiot. I was bitter.
I think we all do that.
And I realized that that's not true, and that isn't who I am. That was a reaction to what was happening within this mind that I don't need to listen to, and I don't need to encourage that negative dualistic banter. As soon as we catch ourselves in dialogue with our thoughts, there is nowhere to go but down.
So let me ask you this. I'm starting to really grasp this now, and I'll probably need more practice. But, there's a certain part where I still have to interact with the other people's matrices. Like, I can't just call my mortgage company and go, I'm really enlightened right now, and you don't really matter much.
No, again, it's
I have to show up for my job.
Of course, but this, if we can stop projecting our idea of a future and just deal with this moment, then in this moment I can deal with the bank. In this moment I can do some logistic work for my job. It doesn't mean that you're denying the world. It's actually the opposite. You're actually accepting the world, but you're not judging it. You're not trying to escape it. You're embracing it for whatever it is, not your ideas, not your concepts, but here and now. What's really in your direct experience. Live in your direct experience.
Because you're right. One of my biggest problems is that is making me incredibly unhappy in life, and especially since Donald Trump won, is I turn on my computer every morning, or I turn on my phone in bed, and I pull up my Hootsuite, and it's got all my news stuff there, and of course right away I'm either happy or I'm really angry, which I'm usually really angry. I mean, you follow me on Facebook, you know I'm angry.
So that means what you're doing is that you are giving your happiness away to other people who are telling.
Happiness away.
That's what you're doing, because now you're reacting to someone else's mind vomit.
Yeah.
So, and then what is their mind vomit? Well, their mind vomit is a reaction to someone else's mind vomit. And it's just this, it's ridiculous. So you got to step back, and it's like, if you want peace, it can only happen within. And so that's why
principles live by. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
So some good principles to live by is, let's see if I can compile these. Try to go back to self. You're the one who gives you happiness, not stuff outside you. And there's a question that you were always asking yourself: Who am I? I think it was.
Who am I? Who am I that has this thought? Who am I that feels this? Who feels this? Who feels this right now? And don't answer that question with a concept. Try to feel that by looking, turning the mind kind of inwards. Who feels this? And you realize, just allow some space here. When you say, who feels this? Let's say you're feeling angry. Who feels this? And you start trying to just give it some space.
Okay, so which part of me, or
just let me talk for a moment. Give me some space.
Okay.
Who feels this? And you start looking. And you're like, well, okay, well, I feel this. Okay, well, who am I? Who am I that feels this? And you start realizing that, well, wait a minute. There isn't really an I that feels this. There's just a feeling. There is a feeling of which I am aware. They're very different things. So it's very different than saying I am angry, as opposed to I am aware of anger. There's a very wide gap between the two. Identifying with anger makes you an angry person. Realizing that there isn't a feeling of anger within you is also recognition that feelings come and go, and you're not an angry person that you then identify with and stomp around the world and on Facebook and Twitter with. But you start realizing, okay, there's a feeling of anger. Okay.
And I'm witnessing it.
But I'm fine. I'm witnessing it. I'm witnessing it. I'm observing it. Now, you could inquire deeper into saying, well, where does this anger arise? And then you'd say, well, it's because of this person, what they did to me or whatever. But then you start, if you through these understandings, you can then realize that, well, that person didn't have a choice in whatever you perceive they did to you, because they're reacting to their own bullshit and they're lost in their own delusional world as well. So you may blame someone else, but that process of blaming, that is your responsibility. So you're angry at your own activity of blame.
And it just goes round and round and round.
Exactly. And it's absolute madness. So if you want peace in your life, stop blaming and start accepting responsibility for the inner environment that you are, which ultimately is the projection of the entire world.
So let me ask you this. I'm not doing comedy, but let me ask you this. I mean, I could see myself going back to a complete person of simplicity and being, but I'd probably eject everything and go get me a log cabin in Montana and live alone as a hermit. And
if that happens, then so be it.
How do I rebuild to a point where I go, well, I want to choose to have my dog children in my life, or a wife or girlfriend, or I mean, that sort of thing. Like,
well, ultimately, as I said, ultimately, life will happen, and life will present you with choices that either you respond to or not. So ultimately, you won't have a choice what happens to you in life. Life will happen, and you will either go along with that flow of life or you will reject it. So if all of a sudden you find yourself contemplating moving to Wyoming, then that's where you are in that moment. In that moment, you're contemplating moving to Wyoming. That has nothing to do with the here and now. So again, start bringing yourself back to here and now, bringing yourself back to here and now. So how do I deal with life here and now? Mindfully.
Okay.
Mindfully, not meaning by immersing yourself in mind, but being aware of what mind is doing to this moment. Because the mind is continually projecting itself into awareness. And if you stop believing in what the mind is projecting into awareness, the mind starts to naturally quiet down, and all of these questions and confusions and things start to settle, because the mind needs an audience. This is a very profound thing that I've discovered, is that the mind needs an inner audience. And if you, as awareness, are not giving it that attention, it'll just leave.
Yeah, my mind went long ago. So let me ask you this though, because even if I go back to my basic self, and I'm trying to understand this, I still have to make choices to have things in my life, but I've got to be careful in how I manage. I've got to remember that I'm the one who makes me happy, and I'm happiness. And so, like, one of the integral parts of my life that my whole life revolves around is my dog children. So, but there's going to be times where things are going to happen. Like Freya, the other day, she chewed up the bed. It was one of those foam things that you have that you put on top of your mattress, and she just decided to turn the foam into Now, when I come upon that sort of thing, she's obviously something I chose to have beliefs about, I guess. And she's done something that could potentially make me unhappy. How do I filter that? How do I interpret that? Or maybe I shouldn't filter might not be the right word, but what do I do with that data?
There's nothing that needs to be done ever, really, because you will, there's no point in even really discussing it after the fact, because you walk in the door, your couch is demolished. Okay, that's your new reality.
Okay.
That's the thing, is that if something is, it is. So if the dog chewed the couch 5 hours ago while you were off doing something else and you come home, well, what is it? Okay, well, you can jump up and down and scream. You can get angry and wreck that moment, or you can go and kick your dog. Okay, well, that's going to do a lot of good, because dogs don't learn 5 hours later. So ultimately, what is the point in getting mad at what is? And that goes back to dealing with the here and now, not your projections about things that are outside of here and now, but in this moment. There's nothing to be mad at.
And that's also part of realizing that you can't control life, and you can't really get angry at that and upset with that, because you can't control that. And because you think you can, that makes you angry, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, once you start accepting life, you then start having a different perspective of life. And then you start noticing that, if you start taking stock of all the shitty things that have happened in your life, so-called shitty things, you can start to realize that some of the worst moments in your life also paved the way for your greatest awakenings, your greatest successes, your greatest learnings. And so what you were calling a crappy moment when you walked home and your dog destroyed the couch, you don't know how that moment could be perceived in a year from now. You don't know what you could actually learn from that experience, relatively speaking.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do I need to ask myself, how am I perceiving this in these moments?
I would say who is angry. So again, if you walk in and your immediate response is, like total anger, like explosive anger, just again, who is angry? And you realize it's the ego that's angry. It's the ego that has ideas that this isn't how I should come home. And that's the thing, is that the ego survives on should and shouldn'ts. And those are just, again, mistaken beliefs of delusion. Life isn't should or shouldn't. It is. It always is. It's just a flowing of isness, and you're the witness of this isness. So you can either be okay with it or resist it. But what good does resisting it do? It just creates further resistance. So really, letting go of this mental conflict with life reveals that there was no conflict to begin with. It was only your resistance to life that created the conflict that you then projected onto others.
You know, sometimes I've kind of connected with this concept. Sometimes when I lived in California, whenever I had a really bad time, I would go down to the beach. And one of the things I loved about the beach and the waves, not only just the setting and the atmosphere and the rolling of the waves that seem to kind of connect with that genetics of crawling up out of that primordial soup. It is as I sit and I'd look at the sand between my toes, and I'd look at the waves, and I'd realize that they'd been there for millions of years and eons. That those waves had just been, and that sand had been coming to me from, or not really me, it's not my sand, but that sand had been developing and washing up on that beach for eons of time. And then I look around at the mountains and realize that all the sort of bull crap that I was, worried about and ruining my life in my head didn't really amount to a hill of beans, because eons from now, those waves will probably still be washing up on the shore, uncaring. And it would help put a lot of my stuff in perspective, because I would realize how small it was and how it was really a whole lot of BS that I'd subscribed to. And so there was a thing I had beyond that, but I think I've lost track of it. But do most Buddhists believe there's a life hereafter, or did you just go, this is our life now, we're going to try and be in the now, and whatever happens is a bonus round, or I don't know.
I'm not Buddhist, but there are some Buddhists that believe in a so-called life after death. Others, other traditions of Zen is that, this is it. And the realization of this is it is nirvana. But again, I'm empty of belief. I don't call myself a Buddhist. So, but what you're referring to about your moment on the beach is very Zen. Aside from you analyzing that moment. In that moment, the world dropped away from you. And this is, very, very profound understanding, is that the world, you don't exist in the world. The world exists in you. When you were sitting there on the beach, where was the world? There was no world. It was you and that moment that you created through your letting go of your imaginings of the world. And in that moment, you were at peace and you were like, this is good. Well, why can you not bring that emptiness of attachment into your work in the city, into your life at home? It doesn't need to be relegated to a yearly vacation in July or sitting on the beach in Mexico once a year. That's ridiculous. That peace is always here, but we cover it up with all of the madness of chasing after our goals and desires and trying to appease all of the things that we believe the world is demanding of us. But the world doesn't demand anything of us, because the world is our own projection. We create the world. We create our ideas of the world. We create our own hurdles.
And then when we don't hurdle them, we're upset. and we're the ones that created it.
Yeah. So, I mean,
like that didn't work out, but you chose that silly thing and now you're angry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the less that you own, so to speak, whether that be like physically own or mentally, psychologically, emotionally own, the less you own, the less you have to emotionally maintain.
That's true.
And what that does is it brings you back to that place on the beach where everything is okay. And you don't have to think about your to-do lists. You don't have to think about when's the pool going to be cleaned. You don't have to think about who did what to me. And you don't have to think about blame, because you realize that everything is you.
I like that thought.
Yeah.
I think I like that thought. Hold on. Wait a second.
Don't think, just abide.
Just abide. Yeah. The dude abides. I love that movie. All right, so I think I got some parameters to work from. I as you've gone through this, I've been trying to think of different things I can hold on to subscribe to. Go, okay, am I witnessing this? Is this who am I? And some different baselines that I can always go back to in questioning.
Here's the thing: is that realize everything is consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Even you looking at me right now, you're not seeing the real me. You're seeing what you're seeing is an image arising within your consciousness. When you're walking down the street, you think you're walking down the street, but the street and the world and your feet walking on the sidewalk, that is an image appearing within consciousness.
I think I need to get high and watch The Matrix again, because this is real.
There you go. But I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. And everything is consciousness. And everything within consciousness is skewed by the mind. And you realize that ultimately, everything that you're seeing is the mind itself moving. You start to question, okay, if everything is the mind, and if everything within my perception is nothing but consciousness, then who am I? And you realize that I am consciousness itself. And within me, the entire universe unfolds. Not me, Brian, me, consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, Brian, because you're really good at this stuff. I mean, when you're going through your life, and is there anything that pisses you off? I mean, when things happen, how do you approach it? How do you go? I'm sure there's stuff that will piss you off, upset you, or
challenges. I mean, challenges are a part of life.
But you recognize that you've accepted those challenges and the fallacies that they're in, and so you can see the game that you've chosen, right? I guess.
Well, I am aware of the reactions that I seem to be having to the world.
Okay.
And I don't feed them, so they don't grow.
And you question them. You go, okay.
I don't even care where they came from. I just know that they're not me.
Okay.
So I break the personal identification with reactions or with opinions almost as soon as they arise. So I'm not saying that I've stopped reacting to the world, but I'm not feeding it, turning it into this big beast. And, reactions happen. Okay. Maybe I snapped at someone a little too harshly. Well, then in that moment, there needs to be some ownership. So you own up to it. You don't start, well, they deserved it, or, they don't know who I am, or it's like, no, it's like, that's all unnecessary. It's like, realizing that there is still a body and mind acting on its own that is a result of the conditioning that you had no choice in. And it takes time to wean yourself off of these behaviors that have become so compulsive and reactionary. So there needs to be some patience with yourself in being that observer and just being that place of noticing, realizing that, okay, no, that came from a place of ego. That wasn't a pure response. And just being that, just knowing that is enough. just knowing. You don't need to do anything other than just knowing that, okay, ego, that was ego rising up there. And then you can
go ahead.
I was just going to say, then that's where self-inquiry comes in again. It's like, who am I? Do I really think that? Do I really feel that? Whose opinion is that? And I realized that consciousness doesn't have an opinion. I am consciousness. I am not the ego that the mind is purporting me to believe. So if all of a sudden I notice that I'm getting swept away in this personality of Brian Hood, it's like, okay, let's just put the brakes on here, because I know where that leads.
Yeah, I know where it leads with me, with Chris.
So I want to keep the so-called Brian personality out of things. And I just want to just be the place of presence that it doesn't have opinion.
So I understand how ego can really be an issue for all of us. Is there ever a way to totally get rid of ego, or is it just always going to be a little battle we're always going to be having going on?
Well, the ego doesn't really exist.
Okay.
So the ego is nothing but our identification with with the thought stream.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can't get rid of something which doesn't exist.
Okay.
So as long as you are not reacting to thought, then you are so-called free of ego. But as soon as you think you're free of ego, that's ego.
So I'm going to try and what I'm going to do today. I mean, this is probably going to take a long time to deconstruct, I would imagine, right?
Well, I've been 6 years in, and it's starting to stabilize.
Yeah, because I can see I built quite the matrix, and one of the matrix's pieces that I need to get rid of and eject really quickly is the Trump matrix. The whole thing's got to woo, and I got to quit tuning into that. I got to get that. I got to go. No,
that's a huge part of it, man. Is deciding. Ultimately, like I said, everything is you. And what I mean by that is, in this moment, everything is you. If you paint your walls full of pink Barbie dolls, well, that's you right now.
How did you know my walls were pink?
Well, I've seen photos.
Shit.
What I mean is that's what's in your what's in your present perception is creating this environment that you react to. So if you have a choice in what you, in some regards, especially when it comes to social media and opening up the newspaper or turning on the TV or deciding to go to the bar or open the liquor cabinet or whatever, all of those things shape your inner environment. So you can stop feeding those beasts. And for me, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit my entire job in the music industry, I moved to a different city, there's many physical things that you could say, brought me here, but those were things that I had to do them because I no longer was interested in maintaining the charade that was that false world that I'd created for myself. So, not saying you have to start deconstructing everything, but for many people, it happens naturally. And for some people, that might mean you start unfollowing all of the feeds that are negative in your life.
Yeah, I need it.
And that's
happiness is in here.
It is.
It's not on.
So I mean, you don't have to live through the lens of some other person's anger, and that is what much of media is. That's why giving away my TV years ago when I had cable was.
That's a really good idea.
It had a very profound effect on my idea of being happy.
For years I didn't watch TV. And I think it was an Anthony Robbins that turned me on to that. He's like, get rid of TV and, your life's a lot more happier. And he was right. And then somehow I got sucked back into my matrix that I chose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'm hardly on Facebook. I'm hardly on Instagram. I'm hardly on any social media anymore because it just wasn't serving me anymore. And I don't desire anything from it anymore. I just, whatever. Yeah. It's not doing anything for me. And
so So, I mean, you choose certain things though to keep around yourself, family and things, but then also in choosing those things, you, I mean, I suppose you have to be very mindful of what you build around yourself, and making sure that you're not putting the thing on it that this makes me happy. You have to realize I make myself happy, but I'm witnessing this. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to build anything. I'm just going with the flow of life. And when I get out of my own way, there's nothing I need to be. There's nothing I need to build. There's nothing I need to maintain. I'm just floating down the river of life, man. It's all good.
All right.
I mean, really, it's like it doesn't have to be so complicated. And that's what we've been learning our entire lives, is how to complicate our essential nothingness.
Yeah.
And when you can be nothing, you actually become everything.
I think you're gonna make me at least a little bit more happier in life.
I hope so. And for me to be happy, I have to go take a leak. So we should end this call.
Well, let's wrap it up. And I appreciate you spending the time and putting up with my jokes and comedy. I inject that into everything, and trying to keep everybody going on the listening end. But you've given so much rich stuff. I mean, at one point, I could just probably sit here and listen to you like my therapist.
Well, you can listen to my podcasts for that.
Yeah, I should. Give us a plug for the podcast, Brian.
Yeah, well, it's the Zen Thinking Podcast. It's on iTunes. It's on TuneIn Radio. It's on Google Play and Deezer and SoundCloud. And I haven't, as I said, I kind of pulled back from publishing for a while. So I haven't actually did one in 3 months. But there is something like 75 episodes of the Zen Thinking Podcast. And it's all pontifications and explorations upon this theme.
Cool. And go visit Brian at amzn.to.
Yep.
Right.
That's it.
All that good stuff. It's been a wonderful time to have you on, Brian. I mean, a lot of your stuff really helps me. I should probably just move in with you and crash on your couch or something. Then I'd be at peace all the time because I'll just sit and listen to you.
Let's just keep it to the podcast.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for tuning in. Everyone check out Brian. He's a wonderful guy and one of the few people I count on a couple fingers as a great person. So be sure to check him out. Be sure to give us likes, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the iTunes, Google Play. I'm going to speed through this so we can get Brian to the restroom. Thanks for tuning in, audience. You guys are awesome, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, bud.
Cheers.